Hey folks, Matthew Weiss here, weiss-sound.com and Weiss Advice here on YouTube. In this video, I'm going to be showing how I conceptualize EQ. EQ is a very simple idea. It's simply grabbing a range of tones and either attenuating it or boosting it. But how do we use an EQ? Well, in my mind, there's really two main ways that we do it. The first is the way it was intended, which is to equalize the signal. If the signal is too bassy, we cut some bass and we've equalized it. If it's got not enough mid-range, we add some mid-range, we equalize it. The second way is to create a creative idea, a vibe, a tone, something that we can put over a sound that makes it fit in a way that's compelling for the record or maybe brings out an emotional component that was suppressed or maybe wasn't there before, something that's a little more transformative. So I'm going to demonstrate both here. I'm going to play a little bit of this record and we're going to be listening to the lead vocal.
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall and break it down, make it fall, then do it over again.
So the song is Do It Over Again by AliBlake. I'm going to put a link to the music video in the description below. I definitely encourage you to check that out because she's a wonderful artist and the music video is awesome. All right, so this is the untreated version of the mix. I haven't done any processing on anything here. I just want to give you the blank slate that I received before I did any treatment. So when I hear this vocal, the first thing I think is that there's something that's not quite natural about it. It feels a little bit husky in the mid-range. It feels maybe a little weighted to the bass side, and the top end kind of feels like it's getting cut off, like it's a little bit under a blanket. So I'm going to grab an EQ, and for these purposes of just kind of balancing things and getting things right, there's a lot of really great EQs out there. I tend to go to the FabFilter Pro Q3 just because it's very versatile. And I'm going to take the analyzer off. I don't like to EQ with an analyzer on. I think that if you get into the habit of doing that, it becomes a crutch. And also sometimes these things can be misleading, just often enough to get you in trouble. All right, so let's start fixing up the issues. The big one is that really big mid-range buildup. It's a broad mid-range buildup that just simply needs to be cut.
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall and break it down, make it fall, then do it over again.
And you hear as soon as I cut that mid-range, it doesn't even have to be a lot. It's like 2.5 dB here that I've cut out. As soon as I cut out that lower mid, suddenly the vocal sounds so much more like how her voice actually sounds. So I always like to start with the big picture stuff. Then I start to go toward like, okay, what are some of the more specific problems jumping out at me?
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall.
So on the notes call and wall, I really hear this resonance buildup that's becoming exacerbated. I want to pinpoint that. It's a little bit more of a narrow move. It's a specific part of the tone that's getting in the way, and I want to bring that down. I think we found it. So what I'm doing here is sometimes called the seek and destroy method. The idea is I'm taking a boost, because I know I'm going to cut. I'm going to boost the signal that I want to hear jump out, and then I'm going to cut that. The one thing I definitely want you to consider when doing this technique is don't do it without having an idea of where that sound is going to be. I kind of can tell just based on the tone of it that it's going to be somewhere in the center mid-range between about maybe 500 hertz to 1K. And so it's showing up at 600, and that doesn't surprise me. I don't want to be sweeping the entire frequency spectrum because I'm just going to start sounding like finding a lot of things that sound really off. And that's not the idea. We want to only pinpoint the things that specifically sound off as we hear them. Okay, let's cut this. Yeah, that's about right. And you'll notice this is a pretty big cut. Usually when we have these kinds of resonant buildups, we want to be a little bit aggressive with the EQ. It's okay.
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall.
The one thing I'm definitely hearing is there's excess sub bass. We really don't need some of that stuff that's coming off of like the low end breathy parts that it sounds almost like physical excursion on the microphone capsule. So we're going to get rid of some of that.
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall and break it down, make it fall. Feel the rising call to run up against.
Yeah, I hear a little excess bass in the word run. Like there's a couple spots where there's just a little bit of excess bass showing up.
Run up against the wall.
So let's loop up the word run, see if we can target that.
Run up, 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 run up.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall.
So this is starting to sound pretty good. I'm going to do some makeup gain.
Feel the rising call.
And the only thing I can say is that the center mid-range, it feels a little bit harder to me. It should sound maybe a little bit rounder and a little bit less grabby. So I'm going to cut a little bit around 1K.
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall.
And you hear that when I do that, her voice becomes a lot prettier sounding, and this is really closer to what her voice actually sounds like in person. Yeah, just a little hair at top end.
Feel the rising call.
And then this to me feels like a really balanced sounding vocal. I'll give you the before and after.
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall and break it down, make it fall.
And then when we hear it in the record, it doesn't sound overblown. It doesn't sound like it's been brightened up in a crazy way or anything like that. It sounds pretty neutral.
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall and break.
So the next way that I conceptualize EQ is as a more creative and transformative device. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now stylize the vocal. I'm going to make it fit the way the record is supposed to feel in terms of its vibe. So there's a number of ways we could do it. I could take it in a more traditional pop direction where I might do something like adding some additional top end and making it really shiny. You know, maybe like adding some top end around 5K-ish and some extra high end that's like above 15K, like 10 to 15K, some kind of a boost there. And that's going to give us that kind of poppy sort of sheen. I mean, I'm just winging this, so this might not be great, but...
Gather hindered beliefs, go kick 'em all to the streets, move with the fire you feel.
Yeah, so with that exaggeration and extension in the top end, that's a typical pop way of going about it. Obviously, I would take some kind of de-essing and control all of those like really hard, bright sounds that show up on the S's and T's, but I might take this in a completely different direction because this could have a really nice vibe if I treated it in a way that sounded kind of vintagey and a little jazzy, and maybe give it this sensibility of like a vocal that you just grabbed off the thrift store shelf. So I'm going to do some weird stuff here. I'm going to do a low pass filter. I'm going to turn it down to like 5K, which is going to sound really muffled and strange.
Feel the rising call to...
I'm also going to take out some of the bass with a high pass.
Feel the rising call to...
So I'm making the vocal very narrow. And now I'm going to restore top end by grabbing this like super top endy area with a really, really wide bell. And I'm just going to boost it like crazy.
Feel the rising call to run up against the wall.
And then all those strident tones that have shown up because of the way I'm EQing this, I'm going to then back those down. I'm guessing those are probably around the 3K range.
Feel the rising call to... Feel the rising call to run up against the wall. Feel the rising call to run up against the wall.
And I'm going to kind of shift the body of the low mid from that sort of like 400 range where it's naturally living. I'm going to kind of push it up the frequency scale and move it more toward the 1K, which is more like what I think of when I think of like broadcast radio tones. So I'm going to go here over to like maybe 300, 400 hertz, something like that. I'm going to take that down with a wide band.
Feel the rising cold.
And I'm going to go to my 1K, maybe like 1.5, and I'm going to push that up a little bit.
Feel the rising cold to run up against the wall and break it down, make it fall.
And this particular EQ is really cool because I can actually add distortion to it as well. So because I'm going for an overall vibe, I'll play it with just the EQ, but this is sort of meant to go hand in hand with a little bit of saturation as well, so it kind of gets that vintagey, vibey tone. So let's do a little before and after here.
Feel the rising cold to run up against the wall and break it down, make it fall. Then do it.
One more time.
Feel the rising cold to run up against the wall and break it down.
So you see how it has more of a vibe to it. It's more stylized sounding. It's now getting a certain personality to it. This is one of the cool ways that you can think of EQ. But I do find that I like to clean things up before I do any of these moves. And so even if I end up like cutting 1K in the cleanup, I might end up boosting 1K with another EQ later on, because these are totally separate ideas in my mind. So I tend to go one to the other. Now I'm going to turn up this distortion right here.
Feel the rising cold to run up against the wall and break it down, make it fall. Then do it over again. Feel the rising cold to run up against the wall and break it down, make it.
Now we got something that's really cool and stylized and bringing a vibe to it and a personality to it. Alright guys, that's the video. If you dig what I'm doing here on this channel, hit the like button and subscribe with the notifications on so that you get notified every time a new video comes out. And of course, if there's something that you'd like to see discussed, let me know in the comment section below. Alright guys, as always, we are musicians, sound is our instrument, and I'll catch you next time.